Aged 72, I learned that silence is not always wisdom. My name is Richard Collins. I built my fortune in Chicago's real estate business over 50 years of hard work. I started as a realtor after college, saved every possible cent, invested in dilapidated properties, renovated them, and sold them for a profit. Today, I possess an estimated net worth of $17 million, but not all the money in the world can buy the tranquility I lost when I met Jason Miller, the fiancé of my granddaughter Amanda. Amanda is my only granddaughter, daughter of my son Robert, who died 5 years ago in a plane crash along with his wife Sarah. Since then, I took it as a personal mission to take care of Amanda, who received a considerable inheritance of $2 million, besides being the main beneficiary of my will. I have always been a cautious man, especially with money and with the people who approached my family, perhaps because I had spent decades observing greed transform ordinary people into true predators. I was sitting on the porch of my house in Lake Forest, an exclusive neighborhood on the outskirts of Chicago, when Amanda arrived in a red sports car accompanied by a young man I had never seen before. Autumn was painting the surrounding trees with golden and reddish hues, a landscape I always appreciated for its transience, reminding me that nothing in this life is permanent. Amanda got out of the car smiling as I hadn't seen her smile in a long time. She had recently turned 24 and had graduated in arts from Northwestern University without much interest in building a solid career, unlike the determination I had always demonstrated in my life. "Amanda, Grandpa, I want you to meet someone special," she said, pulling by the hand a man of approximately 30, with neatly cut dark hair, wearing clothes that seemed too expensive for an assistant professor of literature, a profession Amanda would later inform me was his. "This is Jason Miller. We have been together for 3 months and we just got engaged." The news hit me like an unexpected blow. 3 months was not enough time to get to know someone with whom one intends to share life. I offered my best smile, extended my hand to greet him, and invited them in. My 3-story house, valued at $3.5 million, always impressed visitors with its classic architecture, noble hardwood floors, and antique furniture carefully selected over the years. As Amanda proudly showed Jason each room, I observed how his eyes swept over details, calculating values, analyzing art objects. I recognized that look because I had seen it countless times in self-interested people throughout my career. During lunch, prepared by Maria, my housekeeper for 15 years, Jason spoke about his academic career, his plans to publish a book, his childhood in Seattle, and how he met Amanda at a modern art exhibition. His story seemed rehearsed, too fluid, without the natural imperfections and hesitations of truth. When I asked about his family, he vaguely replied that they were simple people, that his father had been a civil servant and his mother a nurse, both deceased in a car accident 10 years ago. He also mentioned a brother with whom he had not been in contact for years due to family disagreements. After they left, I was uneasy. Something did not fit into that perfect story. The next morning I called Frank Donovan, a former police officer turned private investigator who had helped me with some commercial due diligence over the years. Frank charged $500 a day plus expenses, a price I considered fair for the kind of information I needed. "I want everything on Jason Miller," I told Frank over the phone. "Academic history, previous jobs, family, finances, possible problems with the law, ex-relationships, anything that seems out of the ordinary. My granddaughter is about to make the biggest mistake of her life, and I need concrete proof to convince her of that." Frank started his work immediately while I tried to act normally. Amanda called me 2 days later. excited about the preparations for the wedding scheduled for just 1 month away at the Peninsula Hotel in Chicago, one of the city's most luxurious, where the ceremony and reception would cost approximately $70,000, an amount she expected me to finance as a gift to the couple. "Grandpa, we are thinking of buying that house in Winnetka that I showed you online," Amanda said over the phone. "It costs $1,200,000. I will use part of my inheritance for the down payment, but Jason suggested that maybe you could help us with a loan to complete the amount. I promise we will pay back every cent when his book is published." That request only increased my suspicions. A week after our first conversation, Frank brought me a preliminary report that confirmed my instinct. Jason Miller was not a professor at Northwestern, as he claimed. He had given some guest lectures, but was not part of the faculty. His book, supposedly in the final phase, had no contract with any publisher. Furthermore, Frank discovered that he had accumulated debts of approximately $80,000 in credit cards and had been sued by 3 ex-girlfriends in the last 5 years for unpaid loans. I scheduled a lunch with Amanda at the Drake Hotel, one of my favorite places in Chicago, overlooking Lake Michigan. The room, with its crystal chandeliers and classic decor, always conveyed security to me, as if the walls, witnesses to so many stories, could give weight to my words. Amanda arrived wearing a floral dress I had given her on her last birthday. Her blonde hair pulled back in an elegant bun, reminding me of her grandmother in her youth. "Amanda, I need to tell you something important about Jason," I began carefully after we ordered the appetizer. "I hired an investigator and discovered worrying information. He is not an effective professor, as he said. He is in debt, and he has a pattern of approaching young women with financial resources." Amanda's expression changed instantly. Her blue eyes, so similar to my late son's, hardened. "How could you do that? Investigate the man I love without my consent?" she said, raising her voice to the point where some customers at nearby tables looked our way. "I'm trying to protect you," I replied, maintaining my calm. "You barely know this man, and you are already about to share your life and your assets with him. I have much more experience than you, and I recognize when someone has ulterior motives. Is that what you think? That no one can love me for who I am? That they are only interested in my money, in your money? You have always been like this, Grandpa, controlling, suspicious, incapable of accepting that there are good people in the world. Jason told me that you would probably react this way, that people who built fortunes always think that others just want to take advantage of them." That sentence hit me like lightning. Jason had prepared my granddaughter to discredit anything negative I said about him, a clever strategy that I myself would use if I were trying to manipulate someone. In the following days, Amanda refused to answer my calls. Frank continued his investigation, and each new discovery was more alarming than the last. Jason Miller had not always been Jason Miller. His real name was Justin Morrow, and he had legally changed it after filing for bankruptcy in Nevada 7 years ago. Before that, he had been investigated for fraud in Washington, but the case was dismissed for lack of evidence. His brother, with whom he claimed to have no contact, was actually serving time for fraud in a state prison in California. 2 weeks before the wedding, I managed to talk to Amanda after waiting for her outside the yoga studio she frequented in Lincoln Park. She was thinner, with visible dark circles under her eyes, signs that perhaps the situation was also weighing on her despite her apparent certainty. "Amanda, please listen to me," I begged. "Frank discovered serious things about Jason. He changed his name, has a history of approaching wealthy women. His own brother is in prison for fraud. At least let Frank show you the proof before you go through with this wedding." "Grandpa, stop," she replied with tears in her eyes. "You are old and paranoid. Jason explained everything about his past to me. He told me about the name change to escape a former partner who wanted to harm him, about the brother who made wrong decisions that have nothing to do with him. He was honest with me from the beginning. He just did not tell you because he knew exactly how you would react. Do not show up at my wedding if you cannot support me, and forget about that financial help for the house. Jason and I will manage on our own." She quickly got into her car and drove away, leaving me standing there on the sidewalk, feeling the weight of my 72 years. At that moment, I remembered my son Robert and how he too had been stubborn when he was young, rarely accepting advice, needing to learn everything on his own, often the hard way. The days passed slowly. Frank continued his investigation, now focused on finding concrete evidence, documents, recordings, anything that would be irrefutable even for someone as blindly in love as Amanda. Finally, on the eve of the wedding, Frank called me at 6 in the morning. "Mr. Collins, I found something you will want to see immediately," he said with urgency in his voice. An hour later, we were both sitting in my home office. Frank placed a file with photographs, documents, and a pen drive on my desk. I managed to access his email. There are correspondences with an accomplice explicitly discussing how to approach your granddaughter, how long to wait before asking for money, and plans to, after the wedding, convince her to make a will leaving everything to him in case of her death. I felt my heart race and my hands tremble as I read the printed emails. The coldness with which Jason discussed his strategy was disturbing. In one of the emails sent just 2 weeks ago, he mentioned, "The old man is causing problems, but Amanda is completely under my control. After we get married, I will convince her to cut ties with him, so we will have access to her $2 million and, eventually, to the full fortune when the old man kicks the bucket, which, judging by his condition, should not take long." At that moment, I made my decision. The wedding was scheduled for 5 o'clock in the afternoon in the main ballroom of the Peninsula Hotel. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I called Amanda's room at the hotel, where she was getting ready with her friends. "Amanda, I need to see you before the ceremony. It is important, perhaps the most important moment in our relationship. Please give me just 15 minutes. There was silence on the other end of the line, then a sigh. "Okay, Grandpa, I am in room 1507. Come at 3, but only 15 minutes. I have a packed schedule today." At exactly 3 o'clock, I knocked on Amanda's door. She opened it wearing a white silk robe, her hair partially done, makeup still incomplete. Her friends, sensing the tension, politely retreated to the adjacent room, promising to return in a few minutes. "Amanda, I would not come here if it was not absolutely necessary," I began, sitting in an armchair while she remained standing, arms crossed defensively. Frank found irrefutable evidence of Jason's true intentions. He is with you for the money. He has a detailed plan, including already discussing how to convince you to make a will in his favor. "Grandpa, I cannot believe we are still on this subject," she interrupted, rolling her eyes. Calmly, I handed her a folder containing copies of the emails. "Please, just read." Reluctantly, she took the papers and began to read. I watched her expression gradually change from skepticism to confusion, and finally to a mixture of shock and pain. Her hands began to tremble. Tears streamed down her carefully made-up face. "This could be forged," she muttered without conviction. "Frank is downstairs with all the original documentation, the pen drive with the complete emails, including the metadata that proves their authenticity. And he is willing to present all of this to a forensic expert of your choice, if you wish. He also recorded a phone conversation yesterday between Jason and his accomplice, where they discuss how they will manage your money after the wedding." Amanda collapsed onto the bed, crumpling the wedding dress hanging near her. Between sobs, she asked, How could I have been so stupid? You were not stupid, dear. You were just young and trusting, admirable qualities that people like Jason exploit. We all make mistakes in judgment, even me with all my experience. The important thing is to recognize the truth when it appears before us, even if it hurts. I spent the next hour comforting my granddaughter as she processed the betrayal. Together, we decided how to proceed. Amanda wanted to confront Jason personally, but I suggested a more strategic approach. At 4:30, an hour before the scheduled ceremony, Jason received a message from Amanda asking him to come to her room for a special tradition before the wedding. He arrived smiling, dressed in his tuxedo, carrying a small box that probably contained some gift to further win my granddaughter's trust. When he opened the room door, he found not only Amanda, but also me, Frank, and 2 court officers. Jason's expression instantly changed from charm to panic. "What the hell is this?" he asked, his veneer of sophistication completely disappearing. Amanda, now completely composed, approached him with a calm that filled me with pride. "The wedding is canceled, Jason, or should I say Justin. I know everything. Your emails, your plans, your history of fraud. You have exactly 1 hour to get your things and disappear, or these officers will be very interested in talking about the various parole violations Frank discovered." Jason looked at each of us, calculating his chances. For a moment I thought he would try to maintain the facade, but upon seeing the documents spread across the table, he realized the game was over. "You will regret this, you spoiled bitch," he said through gritted teeth. "I really loved you, you know. The money was just a bonus." "I have already sent all the documentation to the district attorney's office," I intervened. "Any retaliation against my granddaughter will result in immediate consequences. Now get out of here before I ask the hotel security to help you find the exit." An hour later, all the guests had been informed of the wedding cancellation. Instead of the planned ceremony, Amanda decided to hold a small reception to thank her closest friends for their support, vaguely explaining that she had discovered information that made the marriage impossible. 6 months later, Amanda and I are closer than ever. She started working in the administration of the family properties, showing a talent for business she did not know she had. Frank continues to work for us occasionally, helping to vet potential business partners. As for Jason, or Justin, he disappeared from Chicago, but recently Frank located him in Seattle, approaching the daughter of a tech executive. Frank anonymously sent all our documentation to her family. Some lessons must be learned without the pain my granddaughter almost experienced. Last week, Amanda invited me to dinner at her new apartment. Much more modest than the mansion in Winnetka she almost bought to live with Jason. "You know, Grandpa," she said, as we poured wine on her small balcony overlooking the lake, "I am grateful that you were persistent, even when I was cruel to you. I learned that being suspicious is not necessarily a bad thing. It is a form of self-preservation." I smiled, recognizing the wisdom in her words. "Being suspicious without evidence is paranoia," I replied. "But trusting without verifying is naivety. The secret is in the balance and in knowing when to listen to those who truly care about you." We toasted to the future, both wiser, both grateful for the second chance life gave us to strengthen our family bonds. Sometimes the greatest blessings come disguised as disasters avoided at the last minute.